it's the Pirate Hunter, and this is a quick build update on the ISM's Steel Rain build on the M65 Atomic Cannon, and just a couple things I found on it when I got started into it. I'm not very far into it, but this will explain a lot on some of this. Okay, the direction, this is pretty simple really. It's a big kit. There's no real flash on anything I found on it, on any of this. There is a couple issues, and part of it is the way you put this together. On your right side frame is where all the gear sets go, and they have you put the front deck assembly in, forward deck. Well, the issue you run into on this is if you put it all together like this, and you put the other half on it like this, it blocks. You can give up, dummy. It's outsmarting you. You put it in like this, you can see this, it blocks all of that from back down in there. So trying to spray paint, yeah, you can shoot down in there possibly and get it, but this is called out as being painted silver. So if it is, then you're going to have a real tough time trying to get back down in there on the back side of that to paint it silver. So you either leave it the way it is. I don't know how much of that would be covered as you get into this, but from looking at the drawings, I don't think a lot of it is covered that much. Same with the back you run into a different situation on this. This is the rear deck on it. This is the rammer, the slide anyway, for the rammer that goes up in there. Put the shells up in. Goes down in this, no big thing. Fits pretty good down there. There's really, I haven't found any fit issues on this thing yet. I haven't really found any flash, just a little tiny bit, a couple places. But when you put this together, the way the drawing looks like, it shows this notch right here going into that groove right there, and it doesn't. If you try to put it into that groove, it hits back on the hydraulic reservoir for the ram assembly. What you do, there's a notch right there on it that this snaps into that notch, and it gives you this notch here and this notch here. These play into when you go to align it, put it into the frame assembly. But same situation, only a little worse on the front. If you put this all together and try to shoot this, whether it's with primer or olive drab, which is what the color's called out for on this, there's going to be places you're not going to get it shot down in there. Now, true, it can be like when you're building a tank and you're not going to see inside the turret. So, but then again, you run into it where you're not going to be able to get in and highlight any of this stuff. Now, you got to remember, this kit comes from the good old days. When this originally started out, yeah, there was small rattle cans of paint, but the idea was you built a lot of this, you painted it, then you cleaned off where the glue went, then you put it back together and glued it together. There's some people on ISM and YouTube that I've messaged back and forth about doing this stuff back in the 50s and early 60s. So you run into this situation. If you want to detail it down in there, then you're going to have to detail it, then put it together. Or, you know, I don't have the, like I've said, I don't really have the control to do that at times. So other than that, that's really, like I said, I haven't had any problems. Where this goes together, this is a three-part. You have this bottom piece that has the ram slide on it and this reservoir. The only thing I run into was on this bottom piece, this side right here was a little bit high. So what it did is it rolled it to one side, just smoothed it off, no big thing, away we went. Now the gear sets for this, the gears are attached by the teeth, but these sprues, these parts are so loosely attached to these sprues that if you have a really aggressive carpet monster, or you have a dog or something that likes to eat anything that hits the floor immediately, be careful. Because as you pull these sprues in and out of these bags, parts fall off of them. Well, a lot of times this kit's not one of them 1,000-part kits, but it does have a bunch. But it has one advantage that a lot of other kits don't. And this is out of the old days of doing a lot of this stuff. What these do, I don't think you can see that. Well, especially if I throw it on the table, you can't see it. But right there, those are tag numbers. Numbered tags, whatever you want to call it. Those have all the part numbers on it. So if you lose it, most of these parts have these tags on it. There's a couple that don't, but most of them do. Other than the really big pieces, which have an embossed number, or raised number right down inside of them. So this is really pretty good on this. So if you have parts that come off the sprues, I said there's a couple that if they come off, they don't, but the drawings show them quite well. That is these two parts right here. You have to put them in before you put the rear deck in because they are behind the rear deck. The plastic on this is about a medium hardness plastic. You have to be a little bit careful when you go to trim any of the sprues off of it. Well, I said I haven't had to do a lot of trimming even where it's been attached. It's attached so thinly that this stuff just comes off. The only thing that's been attached heavily is this. Another thing on this, these frame rails don't have any bow in them. They don't have any warp in them. And they're fairly thick plastic, so that's possibly why. All in all, so far not much problem. There's a couple things on the drawings, like I said, about where the top half lines up to that. But part of this gun, from reading this, you can elevate this gun. Elevate it and lower it. So, yes, Sarah Kitty, I understand. Okay, I won't bother you anymore. But what it does, there is a gear wheel. This is kind of, the way this shows, you got to do it just a little bit different. This gear goes in there. This wheel is a press fit on the outside. Then this gear that is on the shaft, I haven't glued it on there yet. This gear that is on that shaft goes in there. Then this double tooth gear setup gear goes on here. Get it lined up. Then you got a brace that goes over the top of it that holds it all in place. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but as you turn this, the gears are turning. That shaft's not glued in yet. That's why the shaft's not rotating. Which turns this gear, which goes into a part on the bottom of the barrel assembly, which means you can actually raise and lower this thing. And you get farther back into the directions here, and when you put the cradle locks on, once you do the barrel and everything assembly, there's a lock pin that goes in from both sides to hold this. So you could actually set this up as a model on a shelf where you could lower the barrel down on it, take the transporters off, take it to a show, put it all together and raise the barrel back up on it. Or you could just set it whichever way you want on it. The thing that makes it nice if you can raise and lower that barrel is if you want to transport it somewhere to a show or someplace else, that's not sticking up there. Because if you go to ISM and look at the M65 Atomic Cannon under the steel rain sig, the photographs, I've got a pack 40 that I'm doing that I've got the barrel, a breech assembly laid next to the barrel assembly and on the sprues in this. And there is some pictures of the sprues on a card table. This kit is just massive. There's more sprues than you know what to do with. And there's not a lot of sprues, I should say, but there's a lot of parts. There's just a lot of big parts, let's put it that way. there is very few little small parts on this. Now, as far as photo etch or resin parts, I looked on eBay, and unless there's some somewhere, I don't think you'd find any for this. The detail on a lot of this stuff is really not too bad. You could photo etch it, I guess, but on this, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's got all the hydraulic lines on it, fuse box, or the control boxes for all the hydraulic or electrical, probably electrical lines on this one. It's got all the raised, it's a lot of raised rivets on this. This stuff, you gotta realize there wasn't a lot of rivets on this. This stuff like this, same as the 200-ton gantry cranes I used to run. This is all one great big giant piece. It's not, there's no bolting together on this thing, other than on your end pieces. On the other side of it, there's not a lot of detail, same kind of thing. You've got the boxes on it and the wire conduits going somewhere in some of the different boxes in this. So this, not a lot of detail on the top of that. This part's hydraulic reservoir and that. So all things considered, up to what I've found on this so far and the rest of the stuff I've looked at, there doesn't appear to be any real build issues on it. The only thing is there's a paint issue on it. So I guess in order to be able to get down in and do some of this, just have to mask this where it goes on the sides. There's not, I haven't found a whole lot of alignment pins on this either. There's a few, but most of them what are passive alignment pins are little tiny pegs that go down in there. And on this one, was a little tiny peg goes down inside there that's got a squared edge on one side so that it aligns it where it's supposed to go. So, and I have found one, where'd it go? Somewhere. Someplace on something. I found one sink mark, and that's been it on this. So there's not a lot of issues on this. No, oh, right here. One sink mark, and that's all I found on it, which is no big thing to fix with a little bit of putty. So I've just got to decide how I'm going to paint this thing. If I'm going to put it all together, try to shoot it, get it down in there, and hope nobody notices. Or if I do it the old way that you used to do it back in the 50s when I was a kid doing this stuff, you painted it and put it together. So as far as masking some of this off and doing it, it's no big thing to do. Just got to figure where it's going to go, just mask it off when it's done, put your glue on it, put it together, and then you shoot your final coat over the top or whatever, but it's done down on the inside. Well, this is the Pirate Hunter, and as always, go to the ISM forum or International Scale Modelers and look at the forum. It's very good, got a lot of helpful tips in it. There's a lot of really interesting builds going on right now, and check that out. Everybody on there is really good to deal with. Everybody has, that I've asked questions to, has answered. Oh, okay, when I did this on the original kit review, there was a question I had about on the top of the big box, huh? On the top of the transporters, right here, was the 50 caliber on a ring mount. Well, I went to olive-drab.com and posted my question there, and they sent me a link to a whole bunch of photographs of this thing in Europe and the links of where it is in the United States. And nowhere can I find, even when it's being driven around in Europe, and there's one picture of it going through what looks like possibly a village in Germany or somewhere like that, trying to fit this thing through the narrow roads there. And nowhere, other than one, I don't know if it's a rendering or what, can I find a picture with 50 calibers on top of it. Even where they were in Germany, there's two of the transporters sitting right next to each other, and there's nothing on there. So I don't know. I guess I will not use it. I'll just build it without them because I can't find any reference to it. And the build I'm going to do, they wouldn't be on it anyway. So, all things considered, again, this is the Pirate Hunter, and to quote the great Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other till the next time.